7 years of being watched had taught Owen Reeves patience he never knew he possessed. The transparent walls of his habitat showed everything: when he ate, when he slept, when he stared at the ceiling trying to remember what rain smelled like. Thousands of alien visitors passed through each day, their multiple eyes or sensor stalks or whatever they used for seeing all focused on him, the last human, the final specimen of a dead world. Owen pressed his palm against the cool barrier and watched a group of young Quillari students gather outside. Their teacher, a tall insectoid creature with green chitinous plates, gestured at him with 3 of her 4 arms. He could not hear through the soundproofing, but he knew what she was saying. The same thing every teacher said. Look at the human. Look at what happens when a species destroys its own home. Learn from their mistakes. He turned away and walked to the small exercise area in the corner of his cage. Cage. That was the honest word for it, though the Quillari called it a habitat. They had tried to make it comfortable with furniture built to human proportions, books downloaded from Earth's final databases, even a small kitchen area. But comfort did not change the fact that he could not leave, that he would never leave. Owen dropped to the floor and began his daily routine of push-ups. 1, 2, 3. He counted aloud in English just to hear the language spoken. 4, 5, 6. No one else in the galaxy spoke English anymore. 7, 8, 9. When he died, the language would die with him. 10, 11, 12. His muscles burned, but he kept going. 50 push-ups, then sit-ups, then stretches. The Quillari medical staff monitored his health obsessively. They wanted their prize exhibit to live as long as possible. Owen had considered letting himself waste away, but spite kept him going. If they wanted to watch him, he would show them a human who refused to break. The day passed like all the others. He ate the synthetic food that approximated human nutrition, read from his limited library, and tried not to think about home. About Earth. About the blue sky that turned orange in the evenings, about grass under bare feet, about the sound of his sister laughing. She had died in the atmospheric collapse along with everyone else. Owen survived only because he had been working at an orbital research station when it happened. Lucky him. Evening came, marked by the dimming of artificial lights meant to mimic a day-night cycle. The visitor crowds thinned. Owen lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling, counting the small imperfections in the metal panels. He had memorized every single one. Then the alarms started. Not danger alarms, but announcement chimes. Owen sat up as holographic displays flickered to life throughout his habitat. He could not access most station systems, but they allowed him entertainment feeds. The main screen showed the Remembrance Station's central plaza, packed with Quillari in ceremonial robes. Director Vimesh appeared on screen, his purple chitin polished to a shine. Owen had learned to read Quillari expressions over the years. Vimesh looked excited, almost giddy. Citizens and visitors of Remembrance Station, Vimesh announced, his translator converting clicks and chirps into flat electronic words. We are honored to host a sacred event. In 3 days, the bonding ceremony will take place here. The Holy Sanctum Drake, Ashir the Eternal, will choose a companion from among our finest candidates. The crowd erupted in excited sounds. Owen watched with detached interest. He had heard of the Sanctum Drakes, massive creatures the Quillari worshipped, supposedly able to judge the worth of souls. Every few generations, one chose a Quillari to bond with. The chosen one became a spiritual leader, granted wisdom and long life. Superstitious nonsense, probably. But it would mean more crowds, more aliens pressing against his habitat to gawk at him while they waited for the ceremony. The broadcast continued with footage of Ashir. Owen leaned forward despite himself. The creature was beautiful in an alien way, scales that shimmered between colors, wings that seemed too delicate to lift such a massive body, eyes that glowed with amber light. It moved with fluid grace, and something about it reminded Owen of the big cats he had worked with before becoming a wildlife veterinarian, before Earth died. He watched the drake circle its enclosure, and for just a moment, their eyes seemed to meet through the recording. Owen felt something odd, a flutter in his chest like recognition. Ridiculous. It was just a video. Over the next 2 days, the station transformed. Quillari workers hung decorative banners, set up viewing platforms, and prepared the grand ceremony hall. Owen's habitat saw record visitor numbers. Aliens of dozens of species pressed close to his walls. chattering about the upcoming event. Some pointed at him, making comments he could not hear but could easily imagine. Look at the human, so primitive they killed themselves. Thank goodness we evolved beyond such barbarism. Owen ignored them and focused on the news feeds about Ashir. He learned that Sanctum Drakes lived for centuries, that they possessed empathic abilities, that they had bonded with Kolari royalty throughout history. The Drake had arrived at the station yesterday and was being kept in a ceremonial chamber. On the third night, Owen could not sleep. Something felt different, though he could not name what. The station hummed with activity even in the late hours. He paced his habitat, restless energy making his skin itch. Then he heard it, a sound that made every hair on his body stand up. A call, musical and haunting, that resonated through the station's walls. The Drake was singing, if singing was the right word. Owen moved to the transparent barrier and pressed both hands against it. The sound came again, closer. Footsteps thundered in the corridor outside his habitat, followed by shouting Kilari voices. Emergency lights flashed. Owen's heart raced. Something was wrong. The wall screen activated on its own, showing security footage. Ashir had broken free from the ceremonial chamber. The Drake moved through the corridors with purpose, ignoring the Quilari trying to redirect it. Heading somewhere specific, heading here. Owen stepped back from the barrier as the enormous creature rounded the corner into view. Ashir was even more magnificent in person, scales catching the light in ways that seemed impossible. The Drake stopped directly in front of Owen's habitat. They stared at each other. Owen had worked with animals his entire adult life. He knew body language, knew how to read fear and aggression and curiosity. Ashir showed none of those things. The Drake's posture was open, interested, almost hopeful. Its amber eyes focused entirely on Owen with an intelligence that was unmistakable. Without thinking, Owen raised one hand and placed it on the barrier. Ashir lifted a clawed foot and matched the gesture on the other side. Even through the transparent wall, Owen felt warmth. The Drake made a soft sound, nothing like the haunting call from before. This was gentle, questioning. Owen found himself responding instinctively. "Hey there." "It's okay. You're okay." Ashir's scales rippled with light, patterns flowing across its body. The creature settled on the floor, still watching Owen. Guards arrived, weapons raised, shouting for the Drake to move. Ashir ignored them completely. Director Vimesh appeared, his chitin pale with what Owen recognized as fear. "Sedate it. Get it back to the chamber," Vimesh ordered. Owen surprised himself by shouting back, pounding on the barrier. "Don't hurt it." "Can't you see it's calm?" But they could not hear him through the soundproofing. He watched helplessly as they fired tranquilizer rounds at Ashir. The Drake resisted at first, then slowly slumped to the floor, eyes never leaving Owen's face until they finally closed. As they dragged the unconscious creature away, Owen pressed his forehead against the cool wall and whispered to the empty corridor, "I'll see you again. I promise." He did not know why he made that promise or how he could possibly keep it, but something had passed between them in those few minutes. Recognition, understanding, connection. For the first time in 7 years, Owen Reeves felt something other than resignation. He felt hope. Owen traced patterns on the floor with his finger, trying to recreate the way Ashir's scales had glowed. Bioluminescence, probably, similar to deep-sea creatures from Earth. He wondered what purpose it served for the Drake. Communication? Emotional expression? Both? The habitat felt smaller than usual this morning. Owen had barely slept, his mind replaying those few minutes with the Drake over and over. The way Ashir had looked at him, really looked, seeing him as more than an exhibit or a curiosity. The connection had felt real, tangible, like a hand reaching through dark water. His screen activated, showing another news broadcast. Owen almost ignored it, but then he saw Ashir's image and turned his full attention to the display. A Quilari priest in elaborate robes spoke to the camera. The Sacred One's behavior last night was unprecedented. Never in recorded history has a Sanctum Drake broken containment during a ceremony preparation. The priests are in deep meditation, seeking to understand this omen. The broadcast cut to Director Vimesh, who looked like he had not slept either. "The bonding ceremony will proceed as planned. We have reinforced the ceremonial chamber." The Drake's momentary disturbance changes nothing. But Owen could see the lie in Vimesh's body language. The director was terrified. Whatever Ashir had done, it meant something significant. Hours passed with unusual activity outside Owen's habitat. Workers installed additional security measures. Guards took up positions at regular intervals. Owen recognized preparation for something important when he saw it. They were worried Ashir might try to reach him again. Good. Let them worry. He used his limited computer access to search for more information about Sanctum Drakes. The files available to him were basic, meant for public education. Drakes lived 800 years or more. They bonded only once in their lifetime. They possessed empathic abilities that let them sense truth and intention. No Drake had ever chosen to bond with anyone outside Quilari royalty. Owen dug deeper, finding obscure references in historical texts. One passage caught his attention. The Drake's wisdom spans ages and species, for they remember what others forget. Remember what others forget. What did that mean? His research was interrupted by a commotion outside. Owen moved to the barrier and saw Quilari priests hurrying past, followed by technicians carrying monitoring equipment. They were heading toward the ceremonial chamber where Ashir was kept. The Drake was in distress. Owen did not need empathic abilities to know it. He could feel it somehow, a wrongness that made his chest tight. That night the sound started. Owen lay in bed staring at the ceiling when he heard it. A low, mournful call that vibrated through the station's structure. Ashir was crying out, and the sound carried pain that transcended language. Owen sat up, hands clenched into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to help, but he was trapped behind unbreakable walls. The calls continued for hours. Other Quilari on the station must have heard them too, but no one seemed to care. Or maybe they thought this was normal behavior. Owen knew better. He had spent years working with distressed animals. This was not aggression or fear. This was loneliness. He stood and walked to the barrier, placing both hands flat against it. "I hear you," he said softly, knowing Ashir could not possibly hear him. "You're not alone." The calling stopped. Owen waited, barely breathing. Had the Drake heard him somehow? Impossible. The distance was too far, the walls too thick. But the silence stretched on, and he could not shake the feeling that Ashir was listening. He began to talk. About Earth, about his work with animals, about the wildlife sanctuary where he had spent his happiest years, about the injured leopard he had nursed back to health, about the wolf pack that had learned to trust him, about the elephant matriarch who had let him touch her calf. He talked until his voice grew hoarse, and somewhere in the station Ashir remained quiet. Morning brought more news. The ceremony would take place tonight, moved up from the original schedule. Director Vimesh made the announcement personally, and Owen read between the words. They wanted this done quickly before Ashir's behavior got worse. The habitat's cleaning systems activated, and Owen stepped aside as automated drones entered to maintain the space. He noticed they also delivered a new set of clothes finer than his usual garments. Gray fabric with subtle patterns, almost ceremonial. A message appeared on his screen, text only. "You will be moved to observe the ceremony. Do not cause disruption. You will be restrained and monitored." So they were bringing him to the ceremony, probably to keep Ashir calm, since the Drake had shown interest in him. Owen felt a spark of satisfaction. They needed him now, even if they would never admit it. Hours later, guards arrived at his habitat. 6 of them, all armed, all watching him with wary compound eyes. The barrier opened for the first time in 7 years. Owen stepped through, and the simple act of crossing that threshold felt monumental. His legs shook. The corridor smelled different than his habitat, metallic and sharp. One of the guards fitted him with a collar that hummed with energy. Neural dampener, probably, to prevent him from doing anything they considered dangerous. They walked through the station, and Owen saw it properly for the first time. Curved corridors with bioluminescent strips lighting the way, other aliens stopping to stare at him. Quilari citizens backing away as if he carried disease. He kept his head up and his expression neutral. The grand ceremony hall was massive, with a domed ceiling showing the stars beyond. Thousands of Quilari filled tiered seating. At the center stood a raised platform where 5 candidates waited in elaborate armor. Each one represented a different royal house, each hoping to be chosen by Ashir. The guards led Owen to a reinforced containment field at the edge of the hall. The barrier activated around him, a prison within a prison, but he could see everything from here, and more importantly, he would be visible. Drums began to beat, deep and rhythmic. The crowd fell silent. Massive doors opened at the far end of the hall, and Ashir entered. The drake looked diminished somehow despite its size. Its scales did not shimmer as brightly. Its movements lacked the fluid grace Owen had seen before. They had done something to Ashir, drugged it or restrained it in ways that did not show. Anger burned in Owen's gut. Ashir's gaze swept the hall and stopped when it found Owen. The drake's scales suddenly blazed with light, patterns flowing across its body in waves. It made a sound clear and strong that echoed through the massive space. Every Quillari in the hall went rigid with shock. Owen smiled. He did not know what Ashir had said, but he understood the meaning. The drake had found what it was looking for, and the ceremony had not even begun. The first candidate stepped forward with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Owen watched from his containment field as the Quillari noble, a male with deep purple chitin and gold inlays on his armor, approached Ashir with measured steps. The crowd watched in absolute silence. The candidate began his ritual speech. Owen could not understand the Quillari language in its pure form, but the translator collar they had given him converted the words. Great Ashir, I am Quilix of the Third Royal House. My lineage traces back 17 generations of service to our people. I offer you my mind, my strength, and my devotion. Ashir stared at Quilix without moving. The drake's scales had returned to their subdued state after that initial burst of light upon seeing Owen. Now they barely glimmered at all. The candidate continued his speech listing accomplishments and honors, but Ashir showed no response. After several minutes, Quilix reached out to touch the drake, the final part of the ritual. His hand came within inches of Ashir's scales, and the drake simply turned its head away. Rejection. The crowd gasped. Quilix stood frozen for a moment before backing away, his posture radiating humiliation. The priest conferred in urgent whispers. The second candidate approached. Then the third. Each performed their ritual, each offered their devotion, and each received the same indifferent rejection. Ashir would not even look at them. Owen felt the growing tension in the hall. This was not how the ceremony was supposed to go. The Sanctum Drake was meant to sense the worthiness of at least one candidate. Complete rejection of all royal candidates was unthinkable. The fourth candidate, a female named Selvix, tried a different approach. Instead of boasting about lineage, she spoke about service and duty. Ashir's eyes tracked toward her, showing the first sign of interest. Hope rippled through the crowd, but when Selvix reached to complete the bond, Ashir pulled back and made a low sound that needed no translation. Still Owen noticed something the Quillari seemed to miss. Each time a candidate approached, Ashir's gaze would flick toward Owen's containment field. The drake was not ignoring the candidates out of disinterest in bonding. It had already chosen. It was waiting. The fifth and final candidate was the youngest, barely into adulthood by Quillari standards. He approached with less confidence than the others, his movements nervous. He spoke about wanting to learn, to be worthy of the honor, to serve the drake rather than be served by it. Ashir's posture softened slightly. The young Quillari reached out, hand trembling, and touched the drake's scales. Nothing happened. The bond did not form. The hall erupted in confused chatter. 5 royal candidates, all rejected. The priests looked panicked. Director Vimesh stood from his seat, mandibles clicking in agitation. Ashir turned away from the candidates entirely and walked toward Owen's containment field. The crowd's chatter died instantly. Every eye in the hall followed the drake's movement. Owen stood straighter as Ashir approached. The drake stopped just outside the energy barrier, close enough that Owen could see his reflection in those amber eyes. Up close, he noticed thin scars on Ashir's scales, old injuries barely visible. This creature had lived centuries, seen the rise and fall of civilizations, and somehow found something worth noticing in one captive human. I see you too, Owen said quietly, knowing only Ashir could hear through the barrier at this distance. The drake's scales erupted in light again, patterns swirling faster than before. Ashir made a sound, and this time Owen felt it vibrate in his bones. Recognition, greeting, longing. Director Vimesh's voice boomed across the hall. Remove the drake from the human's presence. This is contamination of the sacred ceremony. Guards rushed forward with neural prods, weapons designed to stun without permanent damage. Ashir saw them coming and moved faster than Owen thought possible for something so large. The drake's tail swept out, knocking guards aside without seriously injuring them. More guards came, and Ashir backed against the containment field directly in front of Owen, protecting him. Owen pressed both hands against the barrier from his side. "Don't hurt them." "Ashir, please don't hurt them." The drake went still at Owen's voice. Its scales shifted to a calmer pattern. Owen realized with a start that Ashir understood him, or at least understood his intent. The empathic abilities were real. A guard with a neural prod got too close. Ashir snapped at him, not to bite but to warn. The guard fell back. But another came from the side, prod extended. The weapon touched Ashir's flank and discharged. The drake roared in pain, a sound that shook the entire hall. Its scales flashed red, anger and hurt mixing in patterns that needed no interpretation. Ashir spun, knocking aside more guards, and Owen saw the creature's control slipping. Pain and betrayal were turning to rage. "Stop!" Owen shouted, pounding on the barrier. "You're making it worse." But they could not hear him, or chose not to. More guards surrounded Ashir, more prods struck home. The drake's movements became erratic, defensive. One guard got thrown hard into a support pillar. Another screamed as a clawed foot barely missed him. Owen made a decision. He had watched his captors for 7 years, studied their technology, memorized their routines. The containment field had a control panel on the outside, but he had noticed something they missed. The neural dampener collar they put on him operated on a similar frequency to the field. If he could overload one, he might disrupt the other. He grabbed the collar with both hands and pulled, fingers finding the seam where the two halves met. The device was strong but not designed to withstand determined force from someone willing to hurt himself to break it. Owen pulled until his fingers bled, until the collar's edges cut into his palms. The device sparked and died. The containment field flickered. Owen slammed his shoulder into the barrier while it was weakened. Once, twice. The field collapsed. He was free. Guards shouted warnings. Weapons turned toward him. Owen ignored them all and walked straight toward Ashir. The drake was backed into a corner now, surrounded by guards with prods, scales flashing red and orange in patterns that looked like pain. "Ashir," Owen called, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart. "Look at me. Just look at me." The drake's head turned. Their eyes met. Owen kept walking forward, hands open at his sides, showing he carried no weapons. Guards blocked his path, but he moved around them. One grabbed his arm and he shrugged free without breaking his focus on Ashir. "I know you're scared. I know they hurt you. But I'm here now. I'm right here." He reached the inner circle of guards. Ashir was only a few feet away, sides heaving with rapid breaths, scales still flickering with distressed colors. Owen stepped past the final guard and stood directly in front of the drake. The entire hall held its breath. Owen raised one hand slowly, palm out, the same gesture he had used with frightened animals his entire life. "It's okay. You're okay. I won't let them hurt you anymore." Ashir's scales began to slow their frantic patterns. The red faded to orange, then to gold. The drake lowered its head, bringing those massive eyes level with Owen's. Owen stepped closer and placed his hand on Ashir's scales. The world exploded into light and sensation and emotion. Owen felt everything. Ashir's pain from the prods, loneliness from centuries of existence, hope kindled by finding someone who truly saw the creature rather than the symbol. He felt Ashir's memories flowing into him, countless images and feelings from a life spanning ages. And underneath it all, a bond forming click by click by click, like a lock opening to reveal something precious inside. He also felt Ashir experiencing him. His grief for Earth, his determination to maintain dignity despite captivity, his compassion for a suffering creature even when his own freedom hung in the balance. The drake saw all of it and recognized something familiar. Isolation, understanding, kindred spirits separated by species, but united in what mattered. The light surrounding them pulsed once, twice, 3 times, then settled into a steady glow that connected Owen's hand to Ashir's scales like a bridge made of starlight. The bond was complete. Owen opened his eyes, not realizing he had closed them. Ashir's head rested against his shoulder, the drake's weight supported by its powerful legs but its posture speaking of trust. Owen's other hand came up instinctively to rest on the creature's neck. "I've got you," he whispered. "We've got each other now." The silence in the hall stretched for one more heartbeat. Then Director Vimesh's voice shattered it. "Seize the human."
"This is blasphemy!"
"This is impossible. Guard surged forward, but Ashir moved to stand over Owen, wings spreading wide in an unmistakable protective stance. The drake's scales blazed with patterns that looked like defiance. Owen stood beneath those wings and felt something he had not experienced in 7 years. He felt like he belonged somewhere again. Nobody moved for several seconds. Owen stood beneath Ashir's protective wings, his hand still resting on the drake's scales, feeling the bond pulse between them like a second heartbeat. The sensation was overwhelming and perfect at the same time. Through it, he could sense Ashir's emotions as clearly as his own. Determination, defiance, joy at finally finding connection after so long alone. Director Vimesh broke the frozen moment. This is a violation of every sacred law. Guards, use lethal force if necessary. No! A voice rang out from the crowd. An older Quillari in scholar's robes stood from the seating area. Director, you cannot harm a bonded pair. The laws are absolute. To attack one who bears the drake's bond is to attack the drake itself. Other voices joined in, arguing, shouting. The ceremony had become chaos. Owen noticed that not all the Quillari looked angry. Some showed expressions he had learned to recognize as wonder or awe. The young candidate who had approached Ashir last stood watching with what might have been respect. Ashir made a low rumbling sound that silenced the hall. The drake's head lifted, gaze sweeping across the assembled Quillari, and Owen felt through their bond what Ashir wanted to communicate. The drake was done with their games, their rules, their attempts to control something they had never truly understood. Owen. The voice came directly into his mind, and Owen nearly stumbled in surprise. Ashir could speak to him through the bond. We must leave this place. They will try to separate us when they overcome their shock. Owen had never heard mental communication before, but it felt natural, as if he and Ashir had been talking this way forever. Where can we go? The station is surrounded by vacuum. Trust me. Walk toward the eastern corridor. Stay close. Owen began moving, keeping one hand on Ashir as the drake walked beside him. Guards scattered out of their path. Some raised weapons but did not fire, uncertain what the consequences might be. The crowd parted as they made their way toward the hall's exit. Director Vimesh appeared in their path, backed by a dozen armed guards. You will not leave. The human is station property. The drake must undergo purification rituals to cleanse this unnatural bond. Ashir's growl made the floor vibrate. Owen felt the drake's anger through their connection and placed a calming hand on its neck. Easy. We don't want to hurt anyone. They want to hurt us, Ashir responded in his mind. I know, but we're better than that. The drake's anger cooled slightly. Owen stepped forward to address Vimesh directly. You put me in a cage and called it preservation. You displayed me like an object and called it education. But I'm not property. I never was. And Ashir chose me. You can call it blasphemy or impossible or whatever makes you feel better. But the bond is real and neither of us will submit to your control anymore. You have no rights here, human, Vimesh spat. You are the last remnant of a failed species. You exist only because we allow it. Something cold settled in Owen's chest. The words hit harder than he wanted to admit. But through the bond, he felt Ashir's absolute certainty and it gave him strength. Maybe I am the last human, but I'm not alone anymore. The scholar who had spoken earlier pushed through the guards. He was old, chitin faded to pale green, but his eyes were sharp. Director Vimesh, this is beyond your authority. A sanctum drake has formed a bond. It does not matter that the chosen is not Quillari. The laws of the bond supersede all others. You know this. Scholar Ishvan, you would defend this abomination? I defend the truth. The drake cannot be wrong. If Ashir chose this human, there is a reason we must understand, not suppress. More Quillari joined Ishvan, including the young candidate from the ceremony. The hall divided into factions, some supporting the director, others questioning his authority. Owen saw an opportunity. Ashir, can you reach the eastern corridor from here? Yes, but they will pursue us. Let them. We just need to get somewhere defensible until we figure out our next move. The drake's wings spread wider, and Owen felt the shift in its muscles as it prepared to move fast. Hold on to me. Do not let go. Owen gripped the scales tighter. Ashir lunged forward with speed that should have been impossible for something so large. Director Vimesh dove aside. Guards scrambled but could not keep pace. The drake's powerful legs covered the distance to the corridor in seconds. Owen running alongside, his hand locked on Ashir's neck. Weapon fire exploded behind them. Energy bolts scorched the walls. Owen felt a shear's pain through the bond as one bolt grazed the drake's hindquarters, but the creature did not slow. They crashed through a set of doors into the corridor, left, then right, then through the maintenance access. A shear directed. Owen ran, his lungs burning. 7 years of captivity had not prepared him for a sprint like this. But adrenaline and the bond's energy kept him moving. They took the turns Ashir indicated, moving deeper into the station's less traveled areas. They burst into a large maintenance bay filled with equipment and supply crates. Ashir moved to the far end and used its tail to pull several heavy containers in front of the entrance they had used. Not a perfect barricade, but it would slow pursuit. Owen collapsed against a crate, gasping for air. His legs shook. Blood dripped from his hands where the collar had cut him. But they had made it. For now. Thank you, he said aloud and in his mind simultaneously. Ashir settled beside him, scales gradually fading from their alert brightness to calmer colors. Thank you. I have been alone for so long. I had forgotten what connection felt like. How long? 300 years since my last bonded companion died. I did not think I would find another. Owen processed that. 3 centuries of isolation. He had thought 7 years was unbearable. Why me? Why a human? The drake's eyes met his, and through the bond, Owen felt the answer more than heard it. Because you see truly. Not what I represent or symbolize, but what I am. A being. Alive. Feeling. Just as you wish to be seen. Truth resonated in those words. Owen had spent years being viewed as a symbol of failure, a lesson, a curiosity. Never as just a person. And Ashir, for all its power and sacred status, had endured the same fate. They were both more than what others made them. Shouting echoed down the corridor. Their pursuers had found the trail. We cannot stay here, Ashir said. They will breach this room eventually. Do you have a plan? Through the bond, Owen felt images flood his mind. Ships, allies, species that remembered the truth about the drakes before the Quillari rewrote history, an entire galaxy beyond this station. I have many plans, but first I must show you something they did not want you to know. Ashir's eyes glowed brighter and the bond deepened. Memories poured into Owen's consciousness. He saw the galaxy as Ashir had seen it over centuries. He saw the Quillari finding the drakes and forming partnerships. He saw that partnership slowly become control, become ownership, become religious dogma. And he saw something else. Humans. Not ancient humans from Earth's distant past, but recent ones. Within Ashir's lifetime, survivors from Earth's colony ships scattered across the galaxy, hidden, enslaved in some cases, isolated in others. I'm not the last human, Owen whispered. No, you are not. And now that we are bonded, now that the truth is beginning to emerge, we can find them. We can bring them together. The maintenance bay's door shuddered under impacts from the other side. They were out of time. Owen stood, legs still weak but determination overriding exhaustion. Then let's make sure we survive long enough to do it. Is there another way out of here? Ashir moved to a wall panel and pressed specific points with its claws. A hidden door slid open, revealing a service tunnel. The station has many secrets. I have had time to learn them. They slipped into the tunnel as the main door finally buckled behind them. Owen heard guards pouring into the maintenance bay, shouting when they found it empty. As they moved through the dark passages, Owen felt the bond growing stronger, more natural with each passing minute. He and Ashir were learning to move as one unit, anticipating each other's needs and actions. We will need help, Owen said. We can't do this alone. We will not be alone. Scholar Ishvan and others like him question what they have been told. The young candidate, Terex, I sensed doubt in him even during the ceremony. There are allies to be found, and enemies, yes, many enemies. Director Vimesh will not let this stand. The religious authorities will call for our destruction. But Owen, I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have witnessed truth buried and lies elevated to law. And I have learned that the galaxy always finds balance eventually. We are that balance. They emerged from the tunnel into a docking bay. Small ships filled the space, and Ashir led them to one in particular. A sleek vessel with markings Owen did not recognize. This belongs to a trader who sympathizes with preserving truth. He will help us. Before Owen could ask how Ashir knew this, a figure emerged from the ship's shadow. Not a Quillari, but something else entirely. Tall, with gray skin and 4 arms, eyes that reflected light like a cat's. So, the figure said in accented but clear English. The rumors are true. The Drake has chosen And chaos has come to Remembrance Station. The figure's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Good. It was getting boring around here. Owen looked at Ashir, then at the stranger, then back at the Drake. Through their bond, he felt Ashir's amusement and approval. Owen, Ashir said, meet Rovan. He's going to help us escape and then help us change everything. Rovan's ship smelled like oil, and something sweet Owen could not identify. The trader moved through the cramped cockpit with practiced ease, his forearms working different controls simultaneously. Ashir had curled in the cargo bay, too large for the passenger areas. Owen stood behind Rovan's seat, watching the station shrink in the viewport as they accelerated away. Station security is demanding we return, Rovan said, his secondary arms adjusting weapons systems while his primary hands piloted. I am ignoring them. This will damage my trading license, but some things are worth more than credits. Why are you helping us? Owen asked. Because Ashir asked. And because I owe the Drake a debt. 20 years ago, my ship was damaged in a meteor storm near Quillari Space. I would have died, but Ashir sensed my distress and guided rescue ships to my location. The Quillari claimed credit, but I knew the truth. I have waited for a chance to repay that kindness. Through the bond, Owen felt Ashir's acknowledgement of Rovan's words. The Drake had helped many over the centuries, small acts of compassion that the Quillari often claimed as their own. Where are we going? Owen asked. First, we lose our pursuers. Then we meet with people who will want to hear what you know, what Ashir has shown you. The ship shuddered as weapons fire crossed their path. Quillari security vessels were giving chase. Rovan banked hard, diving beneath the station's massive structure. More shots followed, and Owen grabbed a support rail to keep his footing. They are not shooting to disable, Rovan observed calmly. They mean to destroy us. Can we outrun them? No, but I do not need to outrun them. I only need to survive for 2 more minutes. Owen wanted to ask what happened in 2 minutes, but another barrage of weapons fire cut off his question. The ship's shields flared, absorbing most of the impact. Rovan's forearms flew across controls, spinning the ship in maneuvers that should have torn it apart. Through the bond, Owen felt Ashir's presence in his mind. Do not fear. Rovan is the best pilot in this sector. And help is coming. As if summoned by Ashir's words, 3 ships appeared from behind a nearby asteroid. Sleek fighters painted in colors Owen did not recognize. They moved to intercept the Quillari security vessels, and suddenly the pursuers became the pursued. Your allies? Owen asked Ashir through their mental link. Friends who remember the old ways. Before the Quillari claimed exclusive partnership with the Drakes, they have been waiting for proof that the Quillari lied. You and I are that proof. The battle was brief. The Quillari vessels, outnumbered and outmaneuvered, broke off pursuit and retreated toward the station. Rovan's ship and the 3 fighters continued on their course, leaving Remembrance Station behind. Owen finally allowed himself to breathe. They had escaped, actually escaped. After 7 years of captivity, he was free. Where are we going now? He asked Rovan. Haven's Rest, a neutral station on the border between 3 territorial claims. No single government controls it, which makes it perfect for those seeking to avoid authorities. Many species trade there. Many secrets are kept there. The journey took 6 hours. Owen spent most of it in the cargo bay with Ashir, learning to navigate their bond. The Drake taught him how to send thoughts clearly, how to interpret the emotions and images that flowed between them. It was like learning a new language, one without words. Ashir also shared more memories. Owen saw the galaxy's history through the Drake's eyes. The Quillari had not always been the dominant force. There had been others, species that rose and fell over centuries, and always the Sanctum Drakes had been there, witnessing, remembering, offering wisdom to those who would listen. Why did you let the Quillari control you? Owen asked. I did not let them control me. I chose to work with them initially. They were curious and respectful, but over generations, respect became expectation. Expectation became demand. And before I realized what had happened, they had built an entire religion around us. To reject it meant to reject thousands of Quillari who believed sincerely. I tried to be kind, but kindness without boundaries becomes imprisonment. Owen understood that better than most. So what changed? I choose to break free now. Ashir's emotions rippled through the bond. Determination mixed with something like hope. Because I saw you imprisoned, displayed, alone, and I saw myself reflected in your eyes. We were both trapped by those who claimed to honor us while stripping away our autonomy. I realized that kindness to our captors had become cruelty to ourselves. It was time to choose freedom. Haven's Rest appeared ahead, a massive structure built from dozens of different ships and station modules welded together over decades. It looked chaotic but functional, lights blazing from thousands of windows and docking ports. Rovan guided them to a private berth deep within the station's interior. The docking fees would be astronomical, but privacy was worth it. As they disembarked, Owen got his first look at a truly diverse alien population. Dozens of species moved through the corridors, trading, talking, living their lives. None of them looked twice at a human, because they did not know he was supposed to be extinct. Scholar Ishvan met them in a private meeting room. The old Quillari had escaped the Remembrance Station hours after they had, bringing data files and evidence. He was not alone. 3 other aliens sat at the table, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed when it moved, a 4-legged creature covered in soft fur, and something that looked like a floating colony of bioluminescent jellyfish. Owen Reeves, Ishvan said formally, I present the Coalition for Historical Truth. We have worked for decades to document the lies our species have told. The Quillari's manipulation of the Sanctum Drake's history is only one of many deceptions we have uncovered. The crystalline being chimed, and a translator device converted the sounds to words. We seek to restore truth, to show that the galaxy's history is more complex and connected than any single species admits. Your bonding with Ashir proves what we have long suspected. The Drakes were never meant to serve one species alone. We need you to help us expose the truth, the furry alien added, its voice a deep rumble. But more than that, we need you to help us find the others. Others? Owen asked, though he already suspected. Ishvan pulled up a holographic display. It showed star charts with dozens of points marked in red. Other humans. We have tracked reports, rumors, and evidence. The colony ships that left Earth before the collapse reached many destinations. Some populations thrived. Others struggled. Many are exploited or hiding. But they exist. Hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, scattered across the galaxy. Owen's heart hammered in his chest. Millions. Not the last. Not even close. Through the bond, Ashir projected calm and support. I told you. You are not alone. None of us are. What do you want me to do? Owen asked, the jellyfish-like being pulsed with light. We want you to be what the Quillari said you were. A symbol, but not of failure, of survival, of adaptability. Show the galaxy that humanity exists, that you were hidden away not because you were a warning, but because you were a threat to those who profit from keeping species divided and ignorant. I am one person, Owen said. You are a person bonded to a Sanctum Drake, Ishvan corrected. That alone gives you authority that transcends politics. More importantly, you have lived through captivity and emerged with compassion intact. Others will listen to you. Owen looked at Ashir. The Drake's amber eyes met his, and through their bond he felt complete trust. Whatever he decided, Ashir would support. He thought about the humans out there, isolated, some enslaved, some believing they were alone. He thought about his sister dead on Earth, about the billions who did not make it, about the fact that he had been displayed as a failure of a species when in truth, humanity had survived against impossible odds. Okay, Owen said. I'll do it. But I do this my way. We find the humans. We bring them together. We give them the choice to stay hidden or stand together, but we do not force them. No more cages. Not for me, not for Ashir, not for anyone. Ishvan's mandibles clicked, and what Owen had learned was a Quillari smile. Then we have an accord. There is much work to do. The furry alien stood and approached Owen, extending a paw. Welcome to the Coalition, Owen Reeves. You are about to discover that the galaxy is much larger and stranger than you ever imagined, but also much more full of hope. Owen shook the paw, feeling the soft fur and the firm grip. Through the bond, Ashir projected pride and excitement. They had found allies. They had found purpose. They had found the beginning of something that would change everything. Rovan leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You realize Director Vimesh and the Quillari authorities will hunt you relentlessly. You just humiliated them in front of the entire galaxy. They will want revenge. Let them come, Owen said, surprised by the certainty in his own voice. I spent 7 years as prey. I am done running. If they want to find me, they can watch as I prove everything they said about humanity was wrong. The Coalition members exchanged looks. The crystalline being chimed softly and the translator rendered its words. Then let us begin. The galaxy has been waiting for truth. Let us give it to them. Maps and data files covered the table as they began planning. The first mission would be to reach the nearest human population, a small colony on a mining world called Tanis 7. From there, they would spread the word. Humanity exists. Humanity survived. And with allies like Ashir and the Coalition, humanity would thrive. Owen felt the weight of it all, the responsibility, but he also felt the bond pulsing steadily in his chest, Ashir's strength supporting him. They would face whatever came together. The Drake's voice echoed in his mind, warm and certain. You asked earlier why I chose you. Now you see the answer. Because you are exactly what the galaxy needs, a human who remembers kindness even after cruelty, who chooses freedom without seeking revenge, who sees possibility where others see only endings. Owen smiled. We'll see if I can live up to that. You already have. Tanis 7 looked like a wound on the face of the galaxy. The planet's surface was scarred with massive mining operations, deep gouges where precious metals had been extracted for centuries. Owen watched it grow larger in the viewport as Rovin's ship descended through the thin atmosphere. The conditions down there are harsh, Rovin warned. The air is breathable, but barely. The temperature swings between freezing and scorching. The humans work 16-hour shifts in the mines. It is not a life. It is survival. Owen's hands clenched into fists. Through the bond, he felt Ashir's anger matching his own. The Drake was coiled in the cargo bay, too large to fit in the cockpit, but their mental connection kept them close. How many humans are here? Owen asked. Our intelligence suggests 147. All indentured laborers who signed contracts they did not understand or were born into service. The mining corporation is Zelthani-owned. They follow the letter of galactic labor laws while violating their spirit. They landed at the corporate outpost, a cluster of prefabricated buildings surrounding the mine entrance. Armed guards watched their ship touch down. Rovin had sent word ahead that they were traders interested in purchasing rare minerals. It was a thin cover, but it got them through the door. The outpost manager was a Zelthani named Grixel, a being that looked like a cross between a mantis and a suit of armor. His translator box rendered his clicking speech into flat words. We sell refined metals only. No tours of operations. No interaction with workers. We're not here to buy metals, Owen said, stepping forward. We're here for the humans. Grixel's compound eyes fixed on Owen and recognition flickered across his features. You are the human from the broadcasts, the one who bonded with the sacred Drake. Word had spread faster than Owen expected. The ceremony's failure and his escape had been transmitted across the galaxy. Some called it scandal. Others called it miracle. Everyone was talking about it. I am, Owen confirmed. And I know you have humans working in conditions that violate their basic rights. I'm giving you one chance to release them voluntarily. Grixel's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Their contracts are legal. They owe the corporation years of service. I cannot simply release them. Do you have credits to buy out their contracts? No? Then you have nothing to offer. Through the bond, Owen felt Ashir's presence growing stronger. The Drake was moving through the ship, preparing to make an entrance. I offer you a choice, Owen said calmly. Release them, or explain to the galaxy why you refused when given the opportunity. The Coalition for Historical Truth is broadcasting this conversation. Right now, thousands of species are watching. The crystalline being from the Coalition stood near the ship, its body pulsing with light as it transmitted everything through quantum communications. Grixel's armor-like plating shifted, a sign of agitation. You cannot threaten me with public opinion. I'm not threatening you. I'm offering you a chance to be on the right side of history. Because whether you release them today or tomorrow or in a year, those humans are leaving. The only question is whether you'll be remembered as someone who did the right thing, or someone who had to be forced. The cargo bay door opened, and Ashir emerged. The Drake had to crouch to fit through the outpost corridors, but the sight of a sanctum Drake made every being present freeze. Grixel backed away, his aggressive posture melting into something like fear. The contracts, Owen said softly. Please. Grixel stared at Ashir for a long moment, then turned to a computer terminal. His claws clicked across the interface. I am transmitting the contract releases to corporate headquarters. This will ruin me. They will demand I explain why I gave away valuable laborers. Tell them the truth, Owen said. Tell them you looked at a sanctum drake and a free human and realized some things are more important than profit. The contracts appeared on screen, each one marked as terminated. 147 lives suddenly freed from years of servitude. Where are they? Owen asked. End of shift in 1 hour. They will return to the barracks then. Owen, Ashir, and the coalition members waited in the common area of the workers' barracks. When the miners began filing in, exhausted and covered in dust, they stopped in confusion at the sight of aliens in their space. Then one woman at the front noticed Owen. Her eyes widened. You're human. I am, Owen said. My name is Owen Reeves, and I have something important to tell you all. They gathered around him, 147 faces showing hope and confusion and disbelief. Owen told them everything. About Earth's fate, about the scattered colonies, about his years in captivity and his bond with Ashir. About the fact that they were free now, their contracts voided. You're not alone anymore, he said. None of us are. Humanity survived. We're scattered and hidden and sometimes enslaved, but we survived. And now we're going to find each other. We're going to stand together, not as a species to be displayed or exploited or forgotten, but as equals in this galaxy. A man near the back spoke up, his voice rough from mine dust. What if we don't want to be found? What if some of us just want to live quiet lives? Then that's your choice, Owen said immediately. I'm not here to force anyone into anything. If you want to settle somewhere peaceful and never think about the wider galaxy again, I'll help you find that place. But if you want to be part of something bigger, if you want to help find others like us and build a future where humans aren't just survivors, but citizens of the galaxy, then I'm offering you that choice too. A young woman stepped forward. I want to help. My name is Rebecca Hayes. My parents were on the first colony ship to this system. I grew up believing Earth was thriving, that we were just an outpost. When I learned the truth, it broke something in me. But if there are others out there, if we can bring humanity together, then maybe it wasn't all for nothing. Others nodded. More stepped forward. Not all of them, but enough. 30 humans volunteered to join Owen's mission. The rest wanted transport to safer colonies, places where they could rest and heal from years of hard labor. Over the following weeks, Rovin's ship and others from the coalition made runs to relocate those who wanted peace. The volunteers trained in communication, navigation, and diplomacy. Rebecca proved to be a natural leader, organizing the growing effort with efficiency that impressed even Scholar Ishvan. They sent out the message Owen had recorded. His face, his voice, speaking to any humans who could hear, "You are not alone. Come to Haven's Rest. Let us rebuild together." Responses came slowly at first. A colony ship that had been in cryosleep for decades received the message and changed course. A group of humans hiding on a remote moon sent coordinates. A woman who had been enslaved on a pleasure station escaped and made her way to the neutral zone. Within 6 months, over 2,000 humans had gathered at Haven's Rest. They brought different languages, different cultures, different experiences, but they all shared the same story: survival against impossible odds. The Quillari authorities issued warrants for Owen's arrest. Director Vimesh gave speeches about blasphemy and corruption. But the galaxy was watching now, and public opinion had shifted. Other species came forward with their own stories of how the Quillari had manipulated history. The coalition's work was finally bearing fruit. The humans established a settlement on an unclaimed world they named Terra Nova, not as a recreation of Earth, but as something new. A place where humanity could grow without repeating old mistakes. Owen stood on Terra Nova's surface one evening, watching construction crews work on permanent buildings. Children played nearby, the first generation born free. Ashir rested beside him, scales glowing softly in the fading light. Rebecca approached with a data pad. Another signal. A ship that's been drifting for over a century just powered up. They received our message. They're changing course to meet us. Owen smiled. How many? The ship's manifest says 300 in cryosleep. Then we better make sure they have homes ready when they arrive. Rebecca nodded and walked back toward the command center. Owen watched her go, grateful for allies like her. For allies like the coalition. For allies like Ashir. Through the bond, the Drake projected contentment. This is what I hoped for when I chose you. Not just freedom for us, but freedom for many. We're not done yet, Owen said. There are still humans out there who don't know we're looking for them. Still people who need help. Then we will continue, for as long as it takes. You and I together. Owen leaned against Ashir's warm scales and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, more humans waited, more stories of survival, more people who believed they were alone. But they were wrong. Owen had been displayed as the last human, a warning of what happens when a species fails. Instead, he had become something else, a promise, a bridge, proof that even when everything seems lost, even when you're caged and alone and the whole galaxy has written you off, you can still choose to fight, to connect, to hope. They had displayed the last human as evidence of failure. He had shown them the beginning of humanity's greatest success. Ashir's voice echoed in his mind, warm with affection and pride. "What are you thinking about?" Owen smiled. "I'm thinking about how many more of us are out there, about how many bonds we're going to forge, human and alien alike, about how the galaxy tried to define us by our worst moment, and we're going to show them our best. Then let us begin again tomorrow. Another rescue, another connection, another step toward the future we are building. Together," Owen said. "Always together," Ashir agreed. The stars above shone bright with possibility. The work was far from finished, but for the first time in 7 years, Owen looked at those stars not as a prisoner looking out, but as a free person looking forward. Humanity had survived, and with allies like Ashir, with determination like Rebecca's, with hope like the children playing in the dirt of a new world, humanity would do more than survive. They would thrive. The last human displayed in a cage had become the first human of a new era, an era of connection, truth, and the stubborn refusal to let anyone dictate what humanity could or could not become. The galaxy had tried to write humanity's ending. Owen and those like him were writing a new beginning instead.